Welcome to Stickman Studios. Today we will be learning about the case of McCulloch vs. Maryland. It all began in 1816. After the War of 1812, the Second Bank of the U.S. was chartered by the federal government in order to stabilize the nation's economy from the after-effects of the war.
Banks were established in major cities, including Baltimore, Maryland, where none other than James W. McCulloch was a cashier. Not long after, the state of Maryland decided to pass legislature taxing the bank, arguing that the bank itself was unconstitutional and that it was inside their own borders, giving them the right to tax it. However, McCulloch disagreed, arguing that this move was unconstitutional, based on his reasoning that the bank was federally owned. This case was brought to two local courts by McCulloch, arguing that the bank was federally owned, so it could not be taxed by Maryland. Maryland argued that the state was within their borders, so therefore under their legislature.
Both the state court and court appeals ruled in favor of Maryland. McCulloch persisted and brought the case to the Supreme Court, where Chief Justice John Marshall was in charge. The main question was whether Article 1, Section 8, also known as the Necessary and Proper Clause in the Constitution, allowed the federal government to construct a national bank or not. The case pitted James McCulloch, represented by lawyer Daniel Webster, against the state of Maryland, represented by lawyer Luther Martin. McCulloch's attorneys argued that a national bank was necessary and proper for Congress to be able to carry out its enumerated powers.
Maryland argued that, as a sovereign state, it had the right to tax any business within its borders. Supreme Court Justice John Marshall argued that although the Constitution does not explicitly say the word bank in the government's enumerated powers, it has the right to be able to regulate commerce and lay and collect taxes under the Commerce Clause. Creating the bank allows the government to be able to carry out these powers. Furthermore, he stated that the power to tax involves the power to destroy. Allowing the state of Maryland the right to tax the bus involves allowing Maryland to ultimately tax all federal institutions. This was not the intent of the framers, where the government is dependent on the states. This case essentially defined the power of the National and Proper Clause. This new definition of the Necessary and Proper Clause gave Congress extreme power, being able to twist its implied powers towards any legislation. This case was also the first to fulfill the principle of judicial review set by Marbury v. Madison in 1803.
To sum it all up, it began when the Second Bank of the United States was established in 1816. Then, the state of Maryland decided to pass laws taxing the bank as they felt they were entitled since the bank was within their borders. However, James McCulloch, a cashier at the bank, felt that this was unconstitutional since the bank was federally owned. Eventually, the case was brought to the Supreme Court, where John Marshall was Chief Justice. Here, Marshall ruled in favor of McCulloch, deciding that the bank itself was constitutional due to the elastic cause, and that because this bank was constitutionally and federally owned, states were not allowed to tax it. By establishing and defining the elastic or necessary and proper clause, Congress was given extreme power over creating legislation. Thanks for watching. Sorry for the bad drawings. This is Stickman Studios. We're out.